Hey YouTube, Billy J with Different Dimension Gaming, coming at you with my Adventure Scareclaw deck profile. So this list is pre-ban list because I haven't yet found a suitable replacement for Baronne, but I'm working on it. So today will be this current build, and then later on this week we're going to do the different build that I've got with the replacement and possibly just a different take on the deck entirely, because the build with Baronne works best with the adventure stuff. But with that being said, let's get into it. So there won't be a combo tutorial for this deck, just because we are uploading two different versions of the deck this week. So first things first, we're going to play 3 copies of Scareclaw Reichhardt. Now, Reichhardt, when it's normal or special summoned, you can add a Scareclaw spell trap from your deck to your hand. But it's important to know that in this deck, you do not want to use the effect of a normal summon monster, because that will turn off your adventure line. So how do we get around that? Well, luckily all of these Scareclaws have the same summoning condition, where they can summon themselves to an adjacent zone of a different Scareclaw monster. So if you summon something like your Astra or your Acro or your Baronne, you can summon Scareclaw right beside it as a special summon for free. And it's important to know that all of the Scareclaw's summons can summon themselves beside any other Scareclaw monster, including themselves. But Reichhardt has a second effect where if you activate the search effect and you control 3 or more defense position monsters, after you search, you can also draw a card. So it works kind of like Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. And then for the rest of your Scareclaws, you're going to play 3 copies of Scareclaw Astra. Now the level 3s, like Reichhardt, all have the same summon condition where they can summon themselves next to any Scareclaw monster. But each of the level 3s will give your Scareclaw Link monsters a different effect. So Astra, when in defense position, all your Scareclaw monsters in the extra monster zone gain the ability to attack equal to the number of defense position monsters you control. So if you've got your Tri-Heart and 5 guys in defense, then your monster is attacking 5 times. Three copies of Scareclaw Acro. So again, same summoning condition, but with this one, your Scareclaw monster in the EMZ gains 300 attack for each defense position monster that you control. So again, if you've got 5, it gains 1500 defense. And now, for the next one, we're only playing 2, but you can definitely bump it up to 3 if you want. I'm currently playing 2 Scareclaw Baronne. Now, there's no reason to only play Baronne at 2 than any of the other ones. I think it just depends on your personal choice. But Baronne will give your Tri-Heart piercing damage. So if you've got all 3 of them on the field, then you gain 900, you attack 3 times, and you inflict piercing damage. So they all kind of focus around Tri-Heart and making it kind of a protect the castle kind of build. And then for the last Scareclaw that we're playing, we are playing 2 copies of Scareclaw Kashtira. And this one has a different summoning condition where you can summon it from your hand, but you have to banish a Scareclaw or Visas Starfrost from your graveyard. Once per turn, your Scareclaw Kashtira can attack while in face-up defense position, and then you apply its defense for damage calculation. And while it's on the field, if any of your Scareclaw or Kashtira monsters battles an opponent's monster, that opponent's monster has its effects negated until the end of the turn. So if you attack into something like a Chaos Angel, and suddenly the Chaos Angel's effects are offline. And then for the final part of the Scareclaw half of the monsters in this deck, you're playing the one Visas Starfrost. Now again, you can bump this up to 2, but you really only need the 1. So Visas Starfrost can summon himself from your hand by destroying a monster you control with a different type and attribute. So all of the Scareclaws are Earth Beast. The Scareclaw Kashtira is Earth Psychic, and Reichhard is a Dark Warrior. So they're all different. But ideally, what you would do is you would summon Starfrost off of your Lightheart in your extra deck, which we'll go over in a bit. And then if Visas Starfrost battles an opponent's monster and destroys it by battle, he gains the attack of that half of that opponent's monster's attack until the end of the turn. So with that being said, let's get into our Scareclaw spells and traps. We're going to start with our Primitive Planet Reichphobia. When this card is activated, you can add a Scareclaw or Visas Starfrost from your deck to your hand, and you can only activate one Reichphobia per turn. Then, if you control 3 or more defense position monsters, your Reichphobia can destroy 1 card on your opponent's side of the field. Three copies of Scareclaw Arrival. This card is activated. You can target a Scareclaw or Visas Starfrost in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. If a Scareclaw Link monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish Arrival from your graveyard instead. You can only use each effect once per turn. One Scareclaw Defanging. Your opponent cannot target Scareclaw Link monsters you control with card effects, and they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Banish any monster your opponent controls that was destroyed by battle with a Scareclaw Link monster or Visas Starfrost. And you can banish any Scareclaw Link monster from your field or graveyard to target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. So again, very powerful card. This deck has a very cool matchup against something like Sky Striker because all of their monsters target, and this protects your stuff from being targeted. So for our Scareclaw traps, we're playing the one Scareclaw Splash and the one Scareclaw Twin Saw. Scareclaw Splash. Once per turn, you can target one Scareclaw monster or Visas Starfrost you control. It can attack while in face-up defense position this turn. If it does, apply its attack or defense, whichever is higher for damage calculation. But the better effect on this card is when your opponent activates a card or effect while you control a Scareclaw monster in the extra monster zone, and send this card to the graveyard, negate that effect. You can only use each effect once per turn. So it's important to know that Scareclaw Splash negates the effect and not the activation, because something like Baronne would negate the activation and they can activate another one right away. This just negates the effect. Scareclaw Twin Saw. Tribute one Scareclaw monster, then target 2 cards your opponent controls to destroy them. And if you do, if you control Visas Starfrost, you can banish those cards instead of destroying them. If a Link 3 or higher monster is on your field, you can banish this card from your graveyard. For the rest of this turn, neither player can activate the effects of Link monsters. So again, very powerful card that kind of facilitates your protect the castle in Tryhard. So that's it for your Scareclaw spell trap lineup. Moving on to our adventure stuff. We are playing 3 of the Water Enchantress, 2 Rite of Aramasir, 1 Fateful Adventure, 1 Dracoback, and 1 Griffin Rider. So again, because of the Fateful Adventure and how it works, you don't want to activate the effect of your normal summon monsters. So Water Enchantress can activate her effect from hand or graveyard. You can banish her to add the Rite of Aramesir from your deck to your hand. And if you control an adventure token, you can special summon her from your hand. And you can only use each effect once per turn. Rite of Aramesir, if you do not control an adventure token, it summons one, and then it places your Fateful Adventure into your spell and trap zone. Fateful Adventure has two effects. One, if you control an adventure token and you normal or special summon a monster, you can add a equip spell from your deck to your hand that mentions the adventure token. You can either add it to your hand or automatically equip it to a monster you control. And you want to add it to your hand because in an open game state, you can activate Fateful Adventure to add the Wandering Griffin Rider to your hand, but you have to then send a card from your hand to the graveyard, which is where your Dracoback comes in, because if it's sent to the graveyard, it can automatically equip itself to your adventure token. So you use Fateful to search the Dracoback, and then after your Chain Link resolves, you activate Fateful, add the Griffin Rider to send the Fateful to graveyard, and then send the Dracoback to graveyard, and then Dracoback will put itself on the field and equip it to your adventure token. And Griffin Rider, while you control the adventure token, is an Omni negate, in that you can shuffle it from your field back into the deck to negate anything. And then if you happen to find it again, like if you search it off your Fateful, or if you draw into it and you still control the adventure token, you can once again just summon it to your field. Again, very powerful card, and because you can summon them both in defense position, it also facilitates the Scareclaw monsters boosting up your Tryhard. And it's important to know that your Tryhard locks you into Scareclaw monsters, so you want to do all of your adventure stuff before you summon Tryhard. So let's get into some of the more generic cards. So we're going to play, for hand traps, we're playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Again, these could be any 6 hand traps that you want. I'm just playing these ones because they're the best ones for my personal locals. And then another really good card in this deck, because we don't really do a lot of drawing, is Pot of Prosperity. So if you don't know Pot of Prosperity, you can banish 3 or 6 cards from your extra deck to excavate or to look at the top 6 cards of your deck, add one of them to your hand, and then place the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. And this is just a really good way to search out stuff in your deck easier. Especially stuff like a starter, because sometimes you do brick in this deck, as you do with every deck, but having Pot of Prosperity will help you unbrick your hand quite easily. And then for the final 2 cards, we're playing 1 Reinforcement of the Army to find our Reichard, and the 1 Called by the Grave to stop interruption. With that being said, let's look at the extra deck. We're going to start with our 3 copies of Scareclaw Lightheart. Now this needs a Scareclaw or Visas Starfrost monster, and the monster you use for this guy's Link summon has to come from the main monster zone, and he only gets his effect in the extra monster zone. But it's important to know that if you get negated with this guy, his effect is not once per turn, so you can just summon another one to your extra monster zone and search that way. But when he is Link summoned, you can add a Primitive Planet Reichphobia from your deck to your hand. Then if you control Visas Starfrost and this guy is in your graveyard, you can summon him to a zone adjacent to your Visas Starfrost. So if your Visas is here, you can summon your Lightheart here or here. And you have to remember that the summon from the grave effect is only once per duel. 2 copies of Scareclaw Tryheart, needs 3 effect monsters, must be link summoned, and all monsters on the field that are face up are changed to defense position, and it is unaffected by the activated effects of monsters that are in defense position. So it is affected by your Scareclaw monsters because those are not activated effects, so it does gain all of the boosts from them. And then if your Tryhard is in the extra monster zone, you can target a level 3 or lower Scareclaw monster in your graveyard, summon it to your field in defense position, and then add a different Scareclaw from your deck to your hand. And if you activate this effect, you are locked into Scareclaw monsters. So it's important to know how to sequence your plays because you don't want to get locked too early into your combos and be stuck with only Scareclaws when you could put out a couple other things. Now, for the unfortunate banned card in this deck, we are playing the 1 Baronne de Fleur, or we were, and the 1 Vicious Astrolaud. Now, in this deck, these two were an amazing combo because you could use your Visas Starfrost and your Scareclaw Reichphobia to summon into Baronne because it's a 6 and a 4, and the Visas is a tuner. And then you could banish them both from your graveyard to summon the Vicious Astrolaud because it needs Visas Starfrost and a monster with 1500 defense attack and 2100 defense. So these were a very cool combo, and unfortunately, Snake Eyes has made us stop playing this very cool combo. But Baronne was once, while face up on the field, an Omni Negate. It was a destroy a card on either player's side of the field on your turn, and in the standby phase, you could shuffle it back into the extra deck to summon a level 9 or lower monster from your graveyard. Vicious Astrolaud just banished the Visas Starfrost and your Reichphobia from your graveyard to summon itself. And when it was summoned, you could destroy another monster on the field, and if you did, you would gain half the attack of that monster onto your Astrolaud. So they were a very cool combo, and now we can't do that anymore. Thanks a lot, Snake Eyes. Now, the rest of the extra deck is pretty loose. You really only ever needed those 7 cards. So whatever you want to play now is kind of open to personal preference, and this is where all of your Pot of Prosperity cards would come into play. So I'm currently playing 1 Salamangreat Almirage, 1 Cherubini, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Appaloosa, 1 Access Code, and 1 Underworld Goddess. Now, I've seen some people online talk about how Appaloosa should have been banned instead of Baronne, and I agree, because I want Baronne back because I love Baronne. So your Almirage, you contribute it to make one of your monsters cannot be destroyed by card effects, which would help protect your Tryhard, but it needs a normal summoned monster, which is kind of a problem. Cherubini needs 2 level 3s, and it will send a level 3 from your deck to the graveyard, which is an easy way to get all of your Scareclaw level 3s in motion. IP Masquerena needs 2 non-link monsters, and she can use herself and other monsters you control to summon another link monster, and that monster cannot be destroyed by card effects. Dark the Dark Charmer needs a dark monster and any other monster to summon itself, and when it is summoned, you can summon a dark monster from your opponent's graveyard. Now, it's important to know that you're not playing a lot of darks in this deck. In fact, one of the few you're playing in your main deck, or the only one in your main deck, is your Reichphobia. Nightmare Unicorn is an easy thing to summon with your Dark, because you could summon Dark, get the other monster, and then immediately summon into Unicorn. It needs 2 or more effect monsters. two or more monsters with different names. And if it's link summon, you can discard a card, target one card on the field, shuffle it into the deck. And then if this card was co-linked, when you activate the effect, you can draw a card. Apollousa needs two or more monsters with different names except tokens. And she gains 800 attack for every material used for her link summon. So if you use these two, she gains 1600 attack. And then she can reduce her own attack by 800 once per chain to negate a monster effect. Access Code Talker needs two or more effect monsters, and when it is link summoned using a link monster, you can target one of those links in the graveyard and it gains attack times 1000 equal to that monster's link rating. Then you can banish a link monster from your graveyard to destroy a card on the field, but you cannot banish cards of the same attribute for the rest of the turn. So if you banish your Almirage, you can no longer banish Fires, no longer banish Darks, and so on and so forth. And Underworld Goddess, so basically all of these are flex spots. These are just my personal preference. But Underworld Goddess needs 4+ effect monsters. And you can use one monster from your opponent's side of the field to link summon Underworld Goddess. It's very important to know that because it can deal with some of the large bodies your opponent controls. And while she is face up on the field, when she is link summoned, you can negate the effects of all face up monsters your opponent controls. So it's only when she is summoned that she negates all your opponent's monsters. So if they summon something after that, then she becomes their monsters' effects are live, almost the only ones that are summoned after her summon, if that makes sense. I'm sorry if it doesn't. And then she is also unaffected by your opponent's activated effects unless they target her specifically. And any card or effect your opponent would activate that summons a card from the graveyard is negated. So again, very powerful card if you can summon it, but it's not easy to summon because it does take 4 monsters. But if you use something like your IP, you can use 3 monsters you control and 1 monster your opponent controls to summon your goddess because IP is a link too. So that's pretty much it for the extra deck. But before we go anywhere, we have a winner. So shoutouts to Supreme King 1 for your comment. Get in touch with Philly J, myself, somehow, either through our Discord or on Twitter, Instagram. Just figure out a way to get in touch with me so that you can send me your address so I can send you your quarter-century rare Primitive Planet Reichphobia. So you are the winner of our first ever giveaway, so congratulations to you and congratulations to all of us for participating. Thank all of you so much for your subscriptions. We really appreciate it. Stay tuned for what's to come in the future because we've got big expectations of ourselves and we're hoping to continue to grow the channel and make it more of what you want to see. So if you do want to see a deck, please let us know in the comments and we'll do our best to make it a reality. So with that being said, thank you so much for being here. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.